Now that we've finished up the overall background for our main page, we need to add the rest of the elements for our game's design. I'm going to turn on the layer and give you a preview of what we're going to do, and each of these is going to be created over the next 3 exercises. First, we're going to create a simple planet to be placed in the background. Then we're going to colorize a spaceship and add that to the foreground. And in between those, we need to add the name and title of our game that we're creating. And in doing that, we're going to add some special effects to those. Just remember, we're going to do this over 3 exercises, and we're all going to save this on the same custom background document that we created last time. So to get started, I'm going to go to my Layers panel. We'll turn off Layer 2. I want you to create a new layer on top of your Cosmic Dust layer, and we're going to call this the Planet layer. The first thing we want to do to create our planet is to draw off some cloud-like structures that we can place onto our planet. Now, your planet's design can look however you want it to look, but this is kind of a simple and easy way of drawing off some simple structures on our overall terrain. To do this, I'm going to use my pencil tool and then double click on the pencil tool to open up the tool options. Set your fidelity to somewhere between accurate and smooth. We don't want this to be so smooth that we can't add details, but not overly accurate as well. Also, make sure Fill Pencil Strokes is checked on and Close Pencil Paths is checked on as well. We'll say OK to that. Next, as far as our fill color is concerned, I'm going to set mine to something that's nice and contrasting with my blue background. So a bright yellow will be OK for the fill, and we'll keep our stroke at none. To get started, I'm going to draw off some simple lines and striations, something that looks kind of like this. This is going to represent clouds going across our planet's sky. Now you can vary up how these look. They don't have to overlap very much. They don't have to be anything specific. They don't even have to look like good clouds, but they do need to be nice and layered in how they look. Think of it as drawing a stack of really funny pancakes, or maybe stacks of dirt that are on top of each other. You're just going to layer them on. You don't have to have a bunch of layers, and the layers, again, don't have to be very detailed, because once we apply this to our planet, you can see how they'll blend together quite nicely. Maybe we'll do a couple more down here. You can add swirls, you can add more details or less details. And if necessary, you want to add more randomness to it. This is where you can grab your warp tools or your twirl tools and be able to push around these different objects. For me, I definitely don't want these to touch, because if they're clouds, I want to see those different striations that are within there. Once you get something that you like, we need to save this as a symbol. So with my black arrow selection tool, I'm going to select all of my artwork. I'm going to open up my Symbols panel, go up to Window, choose Symbols. And within the Symbols panel, we'll create a new symbol. In my case, I'm going to call this Clouds and say OK. With that symbol saved, we can drag this off. And now let's create our planet. To start with this one, I'm going to grab my Ellipse tool. I'll go up to my fill color, and let's choose something that's contrasting with both our sky and our clouds. For me, I'm going to make it a fill color of red. Remember to hold down your Shift key when you click and drag, and you'll get a perfect circle. And in order to make it a sphere, we're going to use one of the special effects up here. But before we do that, I need to have half of a circle created. To do this, I'm going to grab my Direct Selection tool, the white arrow, and click on this leftmost point. With that left point selected, hit the Delete key to delete it away, and now you're left with a good half circle. With the circle still selected, go up to Effect, choose 3D, and Revolve. This Revolve effect, when you turn on Preview, will take whatever object that you have selected, in our case a half circle, and revolve it around a central axis, giving us, in this case, a nice sphere. Now what we want to focus on are the options down below. If you don't see these options, you can click on More Options, and this will turn on the different surface and lighting features that we can play around with. By default, the type of lighting that we'll have is a plastic lighting, so the way it's shaded looks like it's nice and shiny and has a plastic surface. What I want to do in order to fit the style that we're creating in the background is change the surface from plastic shading to diffused shading. This will turn off those bright highlights and will allow us to give us a more cartoonish matte finish. The other thing I want to do is change up the number of blending steps that we have. The more blending steps that you have, the more realistic it will look. But the fewer we have, so if I bring this down to something way low like 4, you can see how many steps it's actually going to give us to blend those in. So if I was to choose 3, there's 2 different colors. I think somewhere between 4 and 5 will give us kind of a good cartoonish yet still three-dimensional kind of look and feel. If you want, you can play around with your light source by clicking and dragging on that. I kind of like it in the upper right-hand corner. And the final thing you may want to play around with is your shading color. By default, it's set to black, but if I change it to custom, you can then click on this color swatch and then choose whatever color you want it to be. So if I wanted my shadows to be more of a darker blue, we could say okay to that. And you can see how it's going to blend in dark blue with the red that we have. And that fits much better with the kind of background that I have. Once I get something that I like, we really don't need to play around with anything up here. We want to be able to map out the clouds that we create and wrap those around this three-dimensional sphere surface. To do that, choose Map Art at the bottom. And at the top of the new dialog box, you can choose a symbol that we've created. When you click on None, we'll select the clouds that we recently created, and you get a little preview of what it looks like. You can move these clouds around, and you can see how it will map around that spherical surface. If necessary, you can drag out your symbol and reposition it and replace it however you want. But once you get something that you like, you can say OK, and that'll commit to that transformation. At this time, if you want to rotate your sphere and pull it down or pull it around, you can. For me, mine looked pretty good the way it was, so I'm going to keep it exactly like that. Once I like what I got, I can say OK, and this will commit to that particular transformation. Now, the final thing that you can do, if you find that you want to change up the symbol that you created and the clouds that you have, here's how to edit the symbol. Go to your Symbols panel and double-click on the symbol you want to edit, in my case, the clouds. And this will pull up a special editor. You can see at the very top left-hand corner the name Clouds. This means it's gone into kind of an isolation mode. I can select my clouds, and let's say I don't want them to be a bright yellow. We'll turn them into more of a brightish kind of orange so that it shows up better. Additionally, maybe I want a couple of these to be more of a gradient. So I'm going to choose a couple of them, and let's apply a gradient color scheme to that one. Something that looks kind of like that. That looks good. Maybe a few more will be gradiated, and a couple will remain solid colors. Once you've finished editing your symbol, you can click on the little arrow at the top left-hand corner, and this will go back to normal mode, and you can see how it's edited or updated that particular symbol that we already had selected, and it's even edited and updated the sphere that we had. Now, every once in a while, Illustrator will kind of have a glitch, and it will not update the symbol that we've created within our sphere. If that's happening to you, here's how to fix that. Choose the sphere that you have, and then open up your Appearances panel. In the Appearance panel, you can click on the 3D Revolve effect option, and when we turn on Preview, this should update the symbol that you created, and so that you can see the change that you've placed in here. Also from here, if you wanted to move this around again, you can click on Map Art, and let's say I wanted to see a little bit more of the shape that I created. So we'll place it and remap it to get something that you like. Illustrator is not necessarily intended to be a three-dimensional kind of software, so this tends to glitch every once in a while, but that's okay for what we're doing. We'll say okay to this, and I kind of like the results that I've got. The last thing that we need to do to commit to this transformation, notice that when I click on it and drag it over, it's still recognizing that half circle that we're working with. This is because Illustrator is taking that circle and it's applying that effect to the half circle to turn it into a sphere. To commit to these changes, select your half circle, go to Object and Expand Appearance, and this will expand everything out so that you can actually use your direct selection tool and click on the individual points or objects and be able to edit those. I like the way they look, so I'm not going to really make any change. The last thing that you may want to do to your planet that you've created is maybe add a ring around it or some debris or any other kind of embellishment to make it look like a more personal style of a planet. You could add some other clouds or even highlights and shadows as you see fit. I'm going to add a ring around mine. To do this, I'm going to choose my ellipse tool again, and I'll click and drag and draw off more of a flattened ellipse, something that looks like that. In order to cut out a ring on the inside, I'll go to Edit and Copy, then Edit and Paste in Front. What I've done is I've pasted another copy of this ellipse right in front of it. I'll turn it a different color so that when I scale down that new one, you can see how it looks. When I offset the smaller one, you can see it leaves a nice little outer ring. Now, in order to erase away the red inside of it, we can select both of them, and let's choose our Shape Builder tool. When you hold down Option and click on the inside, it will erase away and leave us with a nice little donut that we can work with. Let's place that donut ring around our planet. I'll need to make mine a little bit bigger so I can see both of the edges. There's that. Now, in order to get this back half to be behind my planet, we need to cut our ring in half. The easiest way of doing that is you have a tool called the knife tool. If you don't see it, it may be hiding underneath your scissors or your eraser tool. But with the knife tool, you can click and drag through an object that you have selected, and it's like it's cutting right there along that object. Let's do the same for this side. Click and drag through. Now that I've cut the objects right there, I can select one half of it and drag it away, just like I've cut it with a knife. With the back half selected, all I've got to do is send it behind my planet, and now you can see how it's going completely around it. From here, I could play around with the colors, giving it maybe a gradation of color or something a little bit different. I'm going to add a gradient and then maybe change the direction of that gradient, or let's put the purple on the back. That looks pretty good right there. Whatever you like, this is your design once you've finished. All I've got to do now is select my planet. I'm going to group them together, and I'm going to turn it and place it up here on the side. And then if I wanted to, I could either lower the opacity of it in my transparency panel or find a blending mode that blends well into the background. There's hard light. That's kind of neat in the effect that it's creating. Or I could play around with something else that will give me some different results. Whatever works best for you. I'm going to keep mine at hard light because I kind of like the way that one looks. Once you're finished with this, we're simply going to go to File and Save. And this will be the end of this particular exercise. In the next exercise, we're going to add the spaceship on top of this.